Welcome to week 4 of EDOL 754. For this week, the announcement will be done in video format. For assignment 3.2, you and a partner are going to code some data. The data is provided for you as a PDF document. There's a hyperlink in Blackboard. You click on the link and you go to the website and you can download this PDF where all the data exists. And so what you and your partner will be doing is to scan the data for themes that emerge, and then based on those themes, you're to code the data for frequencies. And so you should know also that the term coding refers to the process of drawing themes from the data. Coding, ing, is the verb usage of the term, and code, code, is the noun, which is synonymous for the theme. So a code is a theme. Coding is the process of drawing themes from the data. Assignment 3.2, what you're going to be doing is once you have scanned the data for themes and you coded for frequencies in your PowerPoint, you are to provide a table with at least 8 codes from your data. And I'd like for you to sort the table based on the frequency count. So the higher the frequency count, the higher up on the table it goes. And also, when you are working with your PowerPoint, you're going to provide a rationale for the naming convention for your theme. And so provide some evidence, and you can just describe it and talk about how you came to the name of your theme. You will code the data, and in addition to providing the rationale for the theme, when you are sharing your PowerPoint at the webinar, also talk about the frequency count. What does that look like? And lastly, for the PowerPoint, you are to write a summary based on the findings of the analysis of the data. So I'm going to show you an example of how to write the findings, the summary of findings. And I don't expect you to have all of the summary presented on the PowerPoint, but just a short example of it would be fine. So here are some suggestions for coding. The first is give your codes a meaningful name. And so too few words causes confusion. Too many words also can be a problem because too many words can be limiting. In other words, the more words you have, the fewer the frequency count, because now you have added too many descriptors. So you've got to talk through it with your partner. My suggestion is to have about 4 to 8 words that describe the theme that you're seeing, okay? And however you come up with these themes, what it must do, though, is it must answer your research question. So a good way to go about it is to first examine the research question. And the research question in this case is, why do teachers enter the teaching profession? And to answer that question, we're going to write a script and draw a line that represents where the theme might go. And so the answer is teachers enter the teaching profession because blank. And if you fill in that blank and it completes the sentence, you know that you have a fairly descriptive theme that helps answer the research question. Okay? So again, that reminder not to have too few words or too many words. Typically 4 to 8 words is appropriate. There's some wiggle room on both ends of that, but typically 4 to 8 words is appropriate. So here we go. The table, when you're done with it, should look something like this. So you've got the answer to the question, and you might, even in your PowerPoint up here, write the research question, but the answer to the question is teachers enter the teaching profession because blank. And you can see that these 3 examples help fill that blank, and it actually completes the sentence. Teachers enter the teaching profession because teachers have a love for working with children, because teachers want to make an impact on the world, because teachers were inspired by previous teachers. And the right-hand column is the frequency count. So that's how many times that theme appeared in the data. So the frequency count in this case is hypothetical. It's not real. I just put some numbers in there, but this is essentially what your table should look like when you're done with it. So a little bit more about coding. And these are very important points to take note of. The first is one response can be evidence in multiple themes. So when you read a response, it might be an example of one theme, or it might be an example of an additional theme. And if that's the case, then that evidence actually gets coded twice or even 3 times. So the reason we are having you guys do this with a partner is, when this type of situation happens, it would be good in your first experience with coding to be able to talk it through with a partner. So is it really evidence in multiple themes, or is it not? Okay. So the next point here is how much of the evidence to code. And what I'm getting at here is if you code just a few words, then when you read the code later, there might not be enough context to fully understand what that code is all about. And so the responses in this data set are actually kind of short. And so let me just use a different example. So if you were interviewing someone and their response, say, maybe is a paragraph, and the evidence of a particular code might just be a sentence in the paragraph, then you might actually cut and paste or code the sentence before and after it if it gives that evidence some context. Or in some cases, you might even code the entire paragraph just to give it some context. So my personal preference is to code a little bit more than the evidence just to give it context if it's appropriate. Okay, so keep that in mind when you're doing the coding. The third is no inferences or assumptions, just the facts. So let's take a look at example response from respondent 155. And so the respondent says, some teachers who pushed me to be more than I thought I was capable. Okay, so that's great evidence, but I don't know what reason that provides for a teacher that enters a teaching profession. So for example, if the respondent's thought was that in return, I want to push others to reach their fullest potential, then that would be a great response. But however, the problem is that's not what the evidence says, right? So if the evidence doesn't say that, we can't assume that and come up with a theme or code. And so in this case, response 155, some teachers who pushed me to be more than what I thought was capable doesn't explicitly give a reason as to why that teacher entered the teaching profession. So my thought would be to leave that alone, and it doesn't actually become a reason because the reason is not explicitly stated and there's some inferencing or there's some assumptions that need to be drawn. So just be real careful about inferences and assumptions and code just what are the facts. If they don't say it, it's the evidence is not there. Okay. The caveat to that is when you do your interviews, and let's say you're interviewing respondent 155, and this is what they said, right? So this would be a very appropriate time then to ask a follow-up question and say, so based on that, why did you become a teacher? And so if the respondent at that point says, teachers push me to my fullest potential, and I want to push my students to reach their potential and to realize what they're capable of, then that can be coded. And so what I'm getting at is during the interview, really be a sharp listener and ask follow-up questions when appropriate. In this case, I would say it's a very appropriate time to ask a follow-up question. Okay? The next thing I want to show you is how to write a summary. So let me first read you the sample summary, and the numbers in here, the 18 and 12, are hypothetical. I didn't actually code exactly those numbers, but I just put some numbers in here to use as an example. So here's an example summary. In this study, the most frequent response for why teachers enter the teaching profession relates to how teachers wanted to make a difference in the lives of children. This idea was referenced 18 times throughout the data. An example of this response can be seen in respondent 162's response, quotation mark, I could help children better their lives, end quotation mark. Many teachers also noted that their love for the subject they teach is also a major factor in entering the teaching profession. This reason was noted 12 times and is evidenced by responses such as, quote unquote, the desire to show others the joy of music and, quote unquote, the love of reading. Okay, so let me highlight a few things in this summary for you. First is there are two themes that are represented here. The themes are very subtly woven into the narrative, but if you read between the lines, the two themes are make a difference in children's lives, and the second theme is their love for subject matter they teach. So those are the two themes. Notice in red, I highlighted two numbers, two frequencies. So it appeared 18 times and 12 times in the data, and that's evidence from the frequency count. Okay, so it's good to have numbers that substantiate the themes, and so do put those frequency results in your summary. The next is I've woven in here some quotations from the actual data just to highlight what an example of those themes are. And one of your goals as a qualitative researcher is to retell the stories that you heard. And so, where appropriate, I would encourage you to quote from the data to highlight your point. Okay, so this is just an example of a summary. For your presentation, if you can write a short paragraph like this, that would be great, just to show in a narrative form what the summary of your findings looks like. And I'll wrap up by talking about a few suggestions for future assignments. So the first is the 2.1 dissertation critique, and that's due at the end of week 7. And so for this assignment, you are supposed to pick one dissertation to focus on. And my hope is that you search for probably about 10 or so dissertations, and you pare that down to maybe 5 very quickly. And remember how you do that is you look at the, you don't read the whole thing, you don't read the entire chapter 3, you look at the purpose statement and the research question, and if that's interesting to you, then you read the introduction part of chapter 3, which gives you some background about the study, and if that's still interesting to you, then you go ahead and read the entire chapter 3. So I would say you can probably pare down that list of 10 down to about 5 pretty quickly. And then you're probably going to end up reading, anywhere from 3 to 5 in chapter 3s in its entirety, just to pick out one that's interesting to you. Okay, and interesting means, that you're interested potentially in the methodology. So if you're interested in doing like a phenomenological study, maybe you look for phenomenological studies and try to find a chapter 3 to use for this exercise. Interesting could also be the subject of the study. It could also be the population and sample of the study. So I don't have a set directive for you on how to, ultimately pick that one dissertation, but in some capacity, hopefully it's interesting to you and you can use that for your dissertation critique. But week 7 is going to come around very quickly, and my hope is that by the end of this week, you have at least done the searches, and I would hope by maybe Sunday night or something like that, you have picked out your one dissertation to use for your dissertation critique. And that brings you to the end of week 4, which means you've got week 5, 6, and 7 to do the signature assignment. It's probably going to take you at least a week or two to really deeply understand that chapter 3. You might read it a couple times and then begin writing your signature assignment. Assignment 4.1, and I noticed I forgot to put the due date. Assignment 4.1 is due week 8, but my suggestion for you here is to plan ahead for data collection. So while 4.1 is due at the end of week 8, you're actually going to be doing the data collection next semester in 755, and that's summer 1 term. And so read the directions carefully because you'll either need to collect artifacts to help answer your research question. You'll either need to do observations or conduct some interviews. And based on those three types of data, our requirement for you is that you have to pick at least two of the three types of data. Okay, so start planning ahead for these future assignments. And so if you have any questions, make sure you contact your instructor. The last 2 years working with these assignments, for 4.1, a lot of students ended up setting up phone calls to see what's doable and not in a mini study. So I encourage you to do that with your instructors. And also for the dissertation critique, if you have any questions on if a particular aspect of a chapter 3 is um, worthy of you critiquing it, meaning, did they do it appropriately or not, I would encourage you to engage in a conversation with your instructor in preparation for writing your critique. So, for example, did they use ethnography in its fullest potential? Did they do it appropriately? If you're unsure about that, read up in the literature about it. But if you're still unsure, connect with your instructors before you write the 2.1 assignment. Okay, so that brings us to the end of our week 4 announcement. Hopefully that was helpful to you.